Voila! Now you should hear me. Please let me know if you can hear me. Okay, let me lower the camera. All right, a little more. All right, it's a bit lo-fi, right? You can hear the microphone? You should be hearing it. Come on. All right, cool. Manish, you got me worried there. I was reliving a nightmare. Like, what was that movie? You know, well, there's a few of them. Let me just close Pro Tools so that we don't get any noises. Pro Tools, quit. I don't want to quit OBS or YouTube. All right, everybody, hello. Well, thank you for indulging me a little bit with this little mini concert. I think playing live is the thing I miss the most. And you can write music, but there's nothing like playing it. And I know this is not much of a thing, just a little song, but thanks for being there. And so you guys can hear me? All right, cool. I'm going to get right to it, right? I don't want to bore you. But it's crazy playing alone in a room in front of a camera. So I hope all you, oh, look at all these messages. All right, so it looks like everybody's doing fine. What's up, Raymond? Manuel, Alex, Indrajit, Manish. Wow, there's people from all over the world already. So let me get started. For those of you who are new to these master classes, let me just get a cleaner sound here. All right. So for those of you who are new, every Saturday we get together and do a live masterclass. And just so you know, guys, next week probably will be the last one until September. We're going to take a break in August because I don't know where I will be and I don't want to schedule things and then not be able to be here. And also, I could do the pre-recorded things, but it's kind of not the same thing. So maybe we just let August go. Tuesday's videos for Inside the Songs are already programmed, so they're already scheduled and they will go live every Tuesday. Not that a lot of people are noticing them, but I keep making them. Screw them, right? And so you'll be able to see all the Inside the Song videos on Tuesdays. So today's masterclass is going to be the last one, and then next week I'm going to do one more, but I would like to do a question and answers thing. Let me know in the chat if you're okay with it. If you think we can have a few questions and then we can kind of go with maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even an hour. I'll answer your questions. But before the break, I wanted to kind of reset and make sure everything we did until now is clear and you're good with it. So we'll do a Q&A next week. Okay, same time, 6:30, and the times are 6:30 for Central Europe. In Seattle, it's 9:30 in the morning. In Zurich is 6:30 p.m. and in Havana, Cuba is 12:30 p.m. All right, so these are the times. And as always, I usually take times for people here in the chat room or my followers. And if you want to see your country or city represented, just drop me a line and I'll do my best to figure out the time code. All right, the time zone. Okay, so today's masterclass is on intervals, and intervals are pretty simple thing, really. Intervals are the distances amongst notes and between notes. We're going to focus today only on intervals between two notes. We're not going to get into chords, triads, any of that. And the reason that I'm really wanting to do this, I hope you can hear the guitar. The reason I wanted to do this is because I think that intervals and understanding intervals is one of the pillars of music theory, and I've been thinking about running a little book on this for a long time, and I just haven't got around to it. I studied a few things, but I really have to put it in order. But I find that the big pillars of music theory, at least for the beginning, are intervals, understanding them. There's knowledge of the guitar, which we kind of got into last time or 2 weeks ago, and then there's the circle of fifths. Now, the circle of fifths, of course, works for major scales, but it can be expanded to many things. So I think if you got these three things down, then you're good to go with theory. There's pretty much nothing you will study that will escape you. The other thing would be ear training. And ear training is extremely important. And again, in September, we'll get back and I'll prepare quite a few master classes. I'm also open to suggestions for other kinds of videos, but please no stupid stuff like watching people playing, like, oh my God, look how great he plays, you know, reaction videos and opening boxes, you know, that's just not my thing. I think time is valuable. It's not money, it's more than money. Time is time. And if I can contribute to you learning, that's fine, but I won't do dumb videos, all right? But thanks for your suggestions anyway. You know, no offense meant if you did want to tell me to open boxes. I understand it's pretty good for subscribers, but it's just, I think, a waste of time, all right? So let's get to it. And again, I prepared a little thing here, a very simple overlay. And you see the first interval, and I just realized that it's covering my guitar after all the work that I put into it. There you go. Is it better? All right. So there are, of course, we have 12 notes, right? From C all the way to the next C. Hope the guitar is staying in tune after that abuse there. But C to C is, of course, the range of the notes. And the distances between all these notes are what makes music, basically. Everything you do in music, I know some of you are from India and other countries where there's a bit of a more flexible division, but for us, at least, for modern music and for, you know, Western music, then we do divide the octave into 12 parts, right? And so there are actually 13 intervals because there's 12 notes, so there's 13 ways to move from one interval to the other until you end up in the same interval and in the same note, which is, again, the C. After the C, there are names for intervals, so you can have a 9th and an 11th and stuff like that, but we're not going to look at that today because really the intervals only go up to the octave. And then everything else is a change of names, but for theory's sake, you're only worried about the first 12 notes, and then everything else is the same. As a matter of fact, some instruments, you even write them down in a way, and you have to play them another way, as long as you maintain those intervals. And there's a little example I like to show. Let me get rid of this Unison thing for a little while. And an example I like to use with students is the following. If I play this, you all know what it is, of course. It's not like the notes are extremely interesting, right? In this case, I'm just playing a D and a B flat. I could do it in E. Let's do it in E, so they're all natural, E and C. Right? The interval is the important thing, the distance. Because if I played it here, or maybe I would play here, unless you have perfect pitch or you have a great knowledge of Beethoven's, you'll be like, well, they're all the same thing. They're all the same piece, right? But if I only change one note, so instead of playing E and C, I play E flat C, you go like, wait, that doesn't sound like anything, right? But it's only a tiny difference. It's only a difference between an E and an E flat, right? But when I moved around more, it was a difference between E and C to, for example, A and F. It's a huge difference in notes, but since the distance or the interval is the same, you recognize the piece, no problem. Of course, rhythm has something to do with it too, but it works with everything, right? I don't know, what's the most famous, the Star Trek? Let's do Star Wars. I'm a Star Trek guy, but let's do the Star Wars thing that everybody knows. You don't know if the symphony that plays this does it from G to D, or maybe you do. I don't know. I don't know how much of a Star Wars nerd you are, but this is what you recognize as the beginning of the thing, right? If I played it here, you still recognize it as the beginning of Star Wars. So intervals are really the key to pretty much everything. And today we're going to look at intervals as separate entities. So one interval, the other interval, the other interval. And I'll give you a little insight into their character and maybe some sounds and where you find them. It's kind of a relaxed lesson today. But you could, of course, think of intervals as sums of intervals. So, for example, a major scale has a whole lot of intervals. It has a major second, a major third, a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, a major sixth. So what if I change that major sixth to something else, right? And then you will get a different sound. It doesn't matter what note you're playing, right? It matters the interval you're playing, okay? So don't worry about it. Please do keep writing in the chat. I'll go over all of it at the end, all right? So we can kind of keep a bit focused. I'm kind of learning how to do this. All right, so the first interval we're going to find is unison. And the unison interval is just as simple as it sounds. And I know I could have skipped it, but why do that, right? But the unison is this. Sorry, there you go. If you don't hear the guitar, let me know, because as always, I'm flying blind here. but this is the same note twice. And I know it sounds weird, but it is an interval, and there's a name for it. Okay? So this is the first one. Not much to say about this, right? Usually it's used, well, as a rhythmical device. It's not really there's no way to do anything with this. Some instruments you could play, well, the guitar is one of them. You can play the guitar, you can play a note in different places. Like for example, on a piano, if you want to play this C on a piano, you have to play in the middle C. There's nothing else you can do. But on the guitar, you can play this here and here. So you could actually play harmonically, right? And so maybe that's interesting, and I've used it. If you watch the video on open string arpeggios from inside the song about Eye of the Storm, I go into it a little bit. So it's not a stupid thing to study, and it's actually quite useful, but there's not much to say about it. Okay, so maybe I will actually take the liberty of sending you back to the inside the song video. I don't remember the number, but it's about open string arpeggios. Okay, and you'll have you can get a feel for this sound. Let's move on to the next one, the minor second. And the minor second is extremely important because is the smallest unit of measurement for music, at least for Western music. So if I'm playing a C, the minor second is a D flat. Okay? If you don't read music, that's why I'm spelling it out for you. So C to D flat. And there's nothing smaller than this. So if you want to create distances between notes, you can't get any smaller than this, right? You can get bigger, but you cannot get any smaller than this. So on the guitar is a fret, on a piano is a key, including the black keys. So you go chromatically up. And speaking of chromatically means exactly this. Chromatically means that you go up a scale or down a scale or a chord progression. By moving chromatically means moving by minor seconds. It means moving without skipping any notes or any frets. For those of you who are more visual, no frets skipped or no keys and none of that. All right, so that's one of the things that's important. The other important thing about okay, wait. Marcel says he's not seeing any image. Okay. Well, it is showing. Can you guys see the score, the notation? Marcel says he can't see it, but I am seeing it on my YouTube feed actually. So please let me know. All right. And thanks for writing. I'm not ignoring you, any of you. So I will say hello to everyone later. All right. Yes. So it is working. Great. Thanks. Thanks, Alex. All right. So where was I? The chromatic thing. The other thing that's very important about minor seconds is there has to be something. It slipped my mind now when I looked at the chat. Let's move on and I'll get back to it. All right, but so the chromatic thing is this. And that means that you cover every single note in the scale. So what's important about this? Other things, if I can regain my train of thought, is that is a quite dissonant interval, one of the most dissonant. And you can hear it on the guitar if I play it on separate strings. We could do maybe not too dissonant, because the lower I play and the higher I play, it's kind of, in the middle it's a bit more natural, but you hear that? So this is a quite dissonant interval. It sounds beautiful when you do it harmonically, which means one next to the other instead of together. So instead of playing an E and an F, I play an E and an F. All right, I know what I was going to say. So half steps or minor seconds are extremely important for scales. And when we looked at the major and minor modes, if you remember in past masterclasses, we talked about how the location of the half steps give the mode its sound, because that's where the most tension is, because these half steps tend to want to resolve to its neighbor. And so it's something that's extremely important to follow when you play a scale, where the half steps are, because that's where you will find the character of the scale. And maybe the biggest example is for the simpler scales is Phrygian, right? So if I have an E at the bottom, This is the sound of a half step. Okay, for ear training, I would suggest you sing these throughout the fretboard. So you go like this: C, D flat. It's pretty hard. Then you go to D flat, D flat, D, D, E flat. And it's pretty hard to do, but it's an extremely important exercise, all right? And a lot of people have trouble with these. They're not any more difficult than any other intervals. It just, you just have to work on them. People tend to work on thirds and fifths, but extremely important, all right? So this is a minor second. And on the guitar is the fret right next to it, all right? So you'll see it in many exotic scales, and it's a beautiful sound. If we move on to the next possible distance, the distance is a whole step. So as you can see, if you don't read music, I see a bit of a discussion there. Don't worry about it. You don't need to read music. Okay, this is actually as simple as it gets, but if you don't read it, it's no problem at all. I will say out the names of the notes, and you can see my neck here. So you can figure out what I'm playing, I think. And you can try it on your guitar, and you'll see that everything sounds exactly the same. So please don't be concerned, all right? I think reading tabs for this is actually more distracting than just doing it. So that's why I'm not putting tabs up, all right? But please don't feel intimidated by this. And at the end of the masterclass, you can ask me any question you want, and I'll be happy to help you. So don't worry about it, all right? Just relax and follow along. So we have a C. The next possible note after the minor second is the major second, and that's a D. Now the sound is full. It's open. It sounds more of a progression, if you notice. The minor second wants to fall back down, right? It doesn't want to leave. It's too dark outside, right? I don't want to go, right? But this one is a lot more hopeful. And of course, this is how a lot of the major scales start. Not only, of course, minor. But it's a progressing interval, I find. And keep in mind, these are all my interpretations, but the reason I wanted to do this is because you can study intervals anywhere. But what I find with people who study intervals from books, which is a great way to do it, or even in school, I had some students that were from the conservatory, and they know the intervals, but they have no idea of what they mean to him or to her. They have no idea what it means to them. And so they can't use them. So that's why I'm giving you my kind of view of them, just to stimulate you and to encourage you to go ahead and do the same and find for yourself what all these sounds mean to you. This is more important than just studying them or to knowing scales, all right? So please bear with me, because it might be a bit of a personal thing, the way I'm doing it, but I think it will be very useful, all right? So this is a CD, major second. It's the sound of many scales. It's a very common sound. One thing to keep in mind if you do ear training, it sounds extremely different when you go up. C, D. When you go up, try to sing it with me if you want to. Are you singing? You should be singing. All right. Indrajit, are you singing out there? Ray, in California, are you singing? I hope you're all singing, because now I want you to try the opposite. I want you to try to sing downwards. Bum, bum, D, C. Try it. Sing along. Now, did you notice anything? The major second sounds closer when you go up, then it sounds like a huge step when you go down. And all right, so you're all singing, great. And you see it? You go like C, D. It sounds so close. And then we go D, C. It sounds like it's closing. And it's a strange thing, and you can use it to your advantage, of course, for closing sentences and for adding it to chords. A great example for this interval is the suspended chord, the sus2 chord. Right? This is the sound of a sus2 chord, and I find it very hopeful and very open, and I really enjoy the sound of the seconds. And of course, when mixed with the minor seconds, is the basis of all scales. Well, the diatonic scales, they're mixes of half steps and whole steps. So a half step and a whole step. You see that? everything we do with major, minor, and modes is based on a sequence of whole step and half steps. And even more difficult scales, like the melodic minor scale, is also based on half steps and whole step in sequence. So these two intervals are extremely important to study by ear training because they're the building blocks of pretty much every scale. And what I suggest is that you study them separate, and then you start from any note and you test yourself. See if you can sing a half step up and a whole step up, and then a half step down and a whole step down. Right? It's a great exercise, and it really means a lot when you improvise. And we'll get into it. But basically, when you improvise, you will not, even if you know how to play fifths, you probably will not go fifth, 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 right? You will probably not do that. You might go up to a fifth. And then, you know, if you jump, then you kind of go step by step. And then if you go step by step, then you jump. So you're always working with these half steps and whole steps. And not being able to hear them makes you play up and down the scale. And so I find it extremely useful for people who, you know, for some of my students who are ready for that. I make them do that a lot, and then I test them. And if they don't pass the test, I beat them. All right, minor thirds. By the way, the names, it's a good time now to talk about that. So how do we know if a note is a third, second, fourth, fifth? And I do apologize for all of you who are more advanced, but for the benefit of everyone, it's extremely simple. You just count on your fingers. So if C is my 1, is my root, as in this case today they're all C's, then it's just as simple as going like this. D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So if you play an E, C, D, E, it's always going to be a third. Always. It's always going to be a third. But it could be an E flat, right? An E natural. It could even be an E sharp. And that's when you need to know if it's minor third, major third, even augmented and diminished. We'll get into it really quickly later. But so if you're confused, why is he calling that an E flat and not a D sharp? Well, it can be a D sharp, because if it were a D sharp, C, D, it would have to be a second. And I don't want it to be a second. I want to teach you thirds. So C, D, E. E is a third. And so C, D, E flat is a minor third. Okay? And we'll do something called the table of intervals, or the intervals table, later on in a different masterclass. But that's the basic idea. So if you want to know your intervals, just count them on your fingers. If you're in C, a B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B is always going to be a seventh. Okay? That's how it works. So the minor third, of course, extremely important. It's the sound of the minor scales. It doesn't matter what minor scale, they all have this note here. It can be a natural minor. It could be, let me play it in E so you can hear it over a drum. It could be a harmonic minor. Could be a pentatonic. It could be a Phrygian. It could be anything, whatever minor scale you can think of. It has a minor third. That's what defines the minor scale, and also minor chords. They all have to have this note. As far as learning it, it's quite simple to memorize because you've been hearing it your whole life in rock music and pop music. So you just go through all the notes and go like C, E flat, and then your way down, E flat, C. And those two sounds, pam pam, pam pam, they're extremely important, and you will hear them everywhere. Okay, so that's the minor third. It's quite self-explanatory. Let's move on to an even simpler one, which is the major third. Major third, you see in the notation there, it's a C to an E. So this is two whole steps. Okay, so it's a whole step to D plus a whole step to E, and it's like this. And the basis for this, of course, everything that has to do with major will need this note. You will find it in the major scale. You will find it in all the major modes, Lydian, Lydian, Mixolydian, But even exotic scales or stranger scales, there's the major augmented. If you want to play, you can play it on the Phrygian dominant. This sound, right? And it's a great sound, extremely useful. You'll find it in every major chord. You will find it in every major scale. So sometimes you're improvising over something and you don't know. Hold on, I just triggered Siri for some reason. But you will find that you're trying to improvise over a strange chord progression, and you don't know what scale to use. So my suggestion is you always go fish around a little bit. Maybe if they don't hear you, it's better, but try to fish around for a third. As soon as you know what third they're playing, then you know the realm, if it's major or minor. So these two intervals are great for that. Okay, so next up, we move on to fourths. C, D, E, F. A fourth is an F. And in this case, it's the natural F, and it sounds like this. Sounds very regal, you notice? Right, like trumpets. And it's an important interval because the guitar, as you know, is tuned in fourths. The guitar is tuned in fourths, except for the second string. And also, the fourths are with the fifth, but mainly the fourths are the basis for the circle of fifths. It's called the circle of fifths, but really the resolutions occur when you see it as a circle of fourths. And again, this is going to be one future masterclass. I just have to figure out how to do it in this setting because it's extremely easy to get confused for you guys, if you know, not being here in person. But the fourths are important for that. They're also very important because when you do inversions of chords, the second inversions of major and minor chords are always starting on the fourth. And that tricks your ear. You'll know if you're a bit more advanced. Otherwise, we don't need to get into it. But second inversions start with the fourth, and they become a bit confusing between major and minor sometimes. So the distinction is not as clear. And I see people have a bit of a hard time. So if you could study the fourth as an interval, it will really help you kind of neutralize it when it's mixed with other notes. So here's my suggestion for studying fourths. Now we're getting pretty far from the root. So if you have pretty good ear, I would go like this. C, C, F, C sharp, F sharp, and I would go like that, right? And then randomly, bum, bum, right? If you cannot do that, because you're getting pretty far from the root, and that's a problem. So it's okay if you need to work your way up. It's okay in the beginning if you have to do this. C, D, E, F, C, F, right? I apologize for my singing, but this is how you get to the F, and then you can work your way down. F, E, D, C, F, C, F, C, and you start hearing this interval. It's very conclusive, but it also has a lot of energy, right? Other intervals we see they're really conclusive and that's it, but this one, it can keep going forever, right? And if you want to study like that, it's extremely important. And the other reason these things, as you move away from the root, become more important to master is that they're used for harmonies a lot. And so you need to know what they sound like, all right? The sound of this in chords is not extremely popular because the fourth kind of fights with the third, but you will see it in suspended chords. So we did the sus2 chord. There's also a sus4 chord where you take out the third and you put in the fourth. So instead of playing C, D, E, C, E, G for C major, you would see C, F, G. So in chords, you don't see a lot of it, really. But you see 11ths and fourths. But the sus4 is the one you'll see. Okay, it's a nice chord. You should learn a few shapes of it. Okay, and listen to the sound. It's extremely important, of course. Now, we move on one half step more, and this is a strange interval. I hope you guys are following along. This is a strange thing to teach online, so I do apologize if it gets a bit confusing. But the augmented fourth is the next note up. So if we move up, well, it's three whole steps from the root, and it sounds extremely dissonant. Okay, but the reason it's so important is because it's what is called the tritone. And the tritone is a note that divides an octave into two equal parts. So if you have from C to C, if you count the frets, right here is where you have 6 frets on one side and 6 on the other. And so this note is the most tense note and the one that more wants to resolve. We looked at this when we talked about secondary dominant chords and also a dominant chords for the 7th chords masterclasses. So I suggest you go back if you're not clear with this, or just ask me any questions you want. But this is the basis for all the dominant chords and the dominant sounds, and of course the augmented chords and the diminished chords. So it's an extremely important interval, extremely hard to learn how to sing properly. This is not an easy thing to do, but you should know it backwards and forwards. It's very important. And where will you see it? Well, the simplest way you'll see it is in the Lydian scale. Right? And also you see it, of course, in the diminished chord, because this note is sometimes called an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth. And if you look at the score here, I have a C here, then I have an F sharp or a G flat. These two notes are what's called an harmonic. They're the same note. They sound exactly the same, but they have different names. We can call this note F sharp, or we can call it G flat. And it's still this note. If you call it G flat, C, D, E, F, G, you will have to see it as a diminished fifth. You see it there, it says augmented fourth, diminished fifth. But if you call it F sharp, C, D, E, F, it's a fourth. And so you have to call it augmented fourth, okay? And of course, for the diminished chord, we'll see it as a fifth. For the Lydian mode, it's a sharp 4. But it's a very important interval, and you should learn it by ear. And it sounds like the easiest thing to do because it sounds so strange, but it's actually quite confusing. So maybe work on it a little bit more. And finally, we go to the easy one, which is the perfect fifth. And the perfect fifth is really simple. After the octave is the most consonant of all intervals. You see you can, they go well together. The reason behind this has to do with the harmonics, the overtones under each note. Too much of an explanation for today. But basically, let's just say that these two notes kind of agree with each other as far as their frequencies go. And this chord, of course, or this interval, you see it everywhere, literally. Almost every scale, almost, not all of them, but almost all of them have a fifth. Most chords have a fifth. And it's just something you need to learn. As far as the sound of the interval is quite, it's very, well, I don't want to say superhero-y, but it is. It's, right, it's really, it pushes you upwards. And it's a great way of starting, like if you want very strong melodies, they work great with this. Sometimes it's a bit of a caricature, so you have to be careful. On the way down is extremely conclusive. Okay, very strong conclusion. So pam pam, it's a pam pam. That's it, right? You can't go anywhere. Remember the fourth. Pam 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 pam. Now this can keep going forever, but this one. Pam pam, sorry, pam 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 pam. See, every time is a new cycle, and so it's, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's extremely important. You'll hear it everywhere. I think, what is it? Yeah, somebody says Superman. Of course, Star Wars. You have was it Indiana Jones? There's so many songs that start with this. So be mindful of it, but you know it works. I have some songs that start with a fifth, and you kind of have to hide it, but extremely consonant. And again, it appears in pretty much every scale and every chord, so it's something you should know by ear. Because also one more thing, When you play the fifth, as you can see, the fifth is here, so it's pretty close to the middle of the octave. And so it's a great place, if you have it clear in your mind how it sounds and in your ear, it's a great place to kind of, it's a pit stop, right? You can stop there and then see what happens with the rest of the notes. So you can maybe go like, okay, wow, this scale is pretty hard, right? Maybe I'm doing a minor scale and go da 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 da, and then I have to keep going with the minor six and the minor seven, and it might be a bit too hard. So what I do, or what you could do, I actually spend a lot of time studying my intervals. So thankfully I don't have to do this anymore, but it's a great way to, you know, to keep going while you perfect your ear. You take this as like a truck stop. And then you go, okay, well, I need to rest a little bit here. My ear knows what's going on. And then from here, I work my way up to the next octave. And so if I have this fifth extremely clear in my mind, I can kind of work my way up only with 3 notes, second, third, and fourth, and work my way down to it only with 2 notes, the seventh and the sixth. So it kind of sits in the middle, and it's very consonant, so it's an easy interval to learn. And it's also been ingrained in your mind for so long through listening to music. It's everywhere. You know, classical music, of course. And jazz is based on a lot on the fifth. So extremely important. And power chords, if you play with distortion, the fifth chord. It's all based on that. Why? Well, because it's so consonant. So when you play with distortion, the more dissonant an interval is, the harder a time you're going to have when you play it, right? And let me see if I can put a distorted sound on here. So this is pretty distorted. If I play a fifth, it works, right? But watch if I play like a diminished fifth. Right? It's not that easy to use, or maybe even a fourth. The reason the fourth works is because your ear hears it backwards as a fifth. But if I play a minor third, minor second, they're a lot more dissonant than you might think. And so the fifth works great for distorted sound and rock sounds. Next up, the minor sixth. Beautiful, beautiful interval. This is maybe my favorite interval, along with the augmented fourth. It's really beautiful, and what it is the basic sound of the minor tonality, minor scale. Of course, the minor third is extremely important, but the minor sixth really is what brings it home. And in this case, what you see on the screen is a C and an A flat. And it works like this. And what this interval does is it really brings home that you're minor. So when I play a minor scale, I could be doing many things here. Now this scale is the melodic minor. It's minor, but it's brighter, and it's not as it's not the essential, you know, the quintessential minor scale. But once I hit the minor sixth, now it's minor. I could do regular minor. I could do harmonic, but it's still a very minor scale. And the way I like to think of it is really just bringing you to the minor level, and then you can always raise, you know, the notes, or you know, stay there. Maybe go even deeper with the minor second. But it's an extremely important interval for me. I use it a lot for melodies as well. I like it in junction with the fifth because I find the fifth to be so calm, and the flat six to be such a rich interval. And for example, one song, this is something. This is Mystic Electric, actually, and it uses the fifth and the sixth. It's a beautiful sound. I use it all the time, actually. There's many. These are the minor to sus. You know, I put the sixth along with the second. They're like tense, but not too tense, and they're easy to use. So I would suggest you study it. There is art says Aeolian. Yes, of course, minor Aeolian, same thing. It's really the sound of minor of course, keeping in mind that the minor third is king. Okay, so C to A flat. We move on to the major 6. As you see, we're going one fret at a time, working our way up towards the root again, which is C. This is C, A, and let's play here. It's a very bright sound. It's kind of beautiful, and it's very hopeful sounding. I find it interesting and also pretty hard to play sometimes because it's so descriptive, and sometimes if I want to be a bit more ambiguous, it's hard to use. But one important thing of this note is for chords. Chords are enriched by sixths a lot. It's the same as with nines. You see a lot of C, 6, 9, C6, and it's a great note. For example, if I have a C major triad, you can put that A in there. And what it does is it changes a chord and it makes it a bit more minor. And the reason is, I know I just said that A is pretty hopeful and bright, but the major 6 is the note from which the relative minor scale is derived. So if we're in C, C, D, E, F, G, A is the A minor scale, which is the relative minor scale of C. And so every time you add a 6 to a chord in the root, then you get this sound. You get, even here, very, very bright, you can still hear, you hear this last note kind of pushes or pulls everything back from major just a little bit closer to minor. And the reason is, for those of you who are a bit more advanced, if you have a C major chord, is C, E, and G. If I put an A after the triad, I have C, E, G, and A. So now I can start counting from A, and I have A, C, E, G. And so this chord is an A minor 7th chord. So a C6 chord is the same as an A minor 7th. And so every time we add a 6th to a major chord, we make it closer to the minor counterpart. Okay, so it's really cool. And I like it. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes you don't want a chord to be all happy, and you want it to be a bit more, hey, I don't know if everything is all right. Everything seems all right, but maybe it's not. And this chord gets you there, all right? So the major 6th. What else can be said about this? Of course, it is the sound of Dorian. So Dorian is a minor scale with the major 6th. Let me play it over in E for you. Right, sounds minor for the first half, and then it gets oh, now I'm a bit happier. All right, and that's a beautiful sound, great for rock and roll. It can be mixed with pentatonics, and so study it. Of course, these intervals after the 5th become a bit harder on the voice. You have to go pretty high, but you should learn them. And these intervals are a lot harder to study on the way down, so it's easier to sing a 6th going up than it is to sing it going down. At least for me, it was a lot harder to learn them, to be able to sing da, 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 this sound. This is easy, ba, 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 bam, bam, because it always tends to make you sing the 5th, which is a lot easier to sing. So keep that in mind. And of course, one more thing about this note. If you play the blues, the typical, the Chuck Berry thing. By the way, Chuck Berry was one of my first concerts when I was a kid. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And you see the 5th to the 6th to the minor 7th, which we'll get to right away. You see that? It's a very important sound. That's a major 6. And it's a good segue into the next one, which is the minor 7th. The minor 7th is the next up, of course. But as we move along the sequence, to me at least, it makes more sense sometimes to see these last intervals, even the 6th, as backwards from the root, instead of always thinking of up, right? So if I'm playing a C, and I'm doing minor 2nd, major 2nd, minor 3rd, major 3rd, 4th, augmented 4th or diminished 5th, 5th, minor 6th, major 6th, minor 7th, major 7 and root, sometimes to me it's easier to see these as going backwards from the root. And this has a lot of advantages actually that I found through the years. And so I suggest maybe you start doing the same. See these 6th and 7th as backwards from the root, and maybe up to the 4th or 5th upwards. You know, you should kind of look at it as a circle instead of a straight line. And I think that's extremely useful. So the minor 7th, of course, is the sound of the dominant chord. There's so much we talked about dominant chords. I won't get into it, but again, please refer back to the older masterclasses. But it's, of course, the sound of the Mixolydian scale if you're in major. And its variants, like the Lydian dominant. But also is the sound of minor, because when you play a minor scale, the regular minor scale is made up of all minor intervals. So it's, well, not all of them. The second is normal, but you know, it sounds like this. Minor 3rd, minor 6th, minor 7th. And there's not much to be said about this. You should be able to sing it at all times, because minor 7th and major 7th are hugely important and different from one another. And the other thing I would say is, be mindful of how it sounds together with the augmented 4th, diminished 5th. Okay, it's an important relationship. I'm sorry. Did I say that? I wanted to say between the 3rd and the 7th. Okay, so between the. Am I doing something wrong here? I'm blacking out. No, it's true. That's right. I got it right. Yeah, from the 3rd to the major to the minor 7th. So in the case of C, it's important to understand the relationship between the B flat, the one you see right here, and the E, which is the major 3rd. Because that's the whole reason why dominant chords work. Okay, so this minor 7th chord interval is extremely important. And to sing it again, you have to stretch your voice a little bit if you're not a singer like me, but you should be able to do that. And there's not much else to say. I really enjoy this sound together with the minor chord. So if I have a minor chord, by adding the minor 7th, it mellows it out a lot. See that? Makes it a bit more bland, not as minor. And it's extremely important. And again, it goes from C to B flat. Okay? And the reason I put this in the score, I go up, sorry, that way, up, then I go down, is that you should learn how to sing it in both directions. You should be able to sing an interval up and an interval down. Okay? And then the last one there is the harmonic thing, is when they're played together. And you should also be able to recognize them. And I'm going to give you a little bit of advice later for studying these, just one in just a few minutes, because we're almost done. The final interval, the one right before the root again, is the major 7th. And it goes from C to B. And that's it. It's the last one. You'll notice a strong pull towards the root. You know, you need to play this note, of course. And it's the basis for, of course, it's extremely important in major scales. Not, of course, as much as the 3rd, but it's used in a lot of major scales, not all of them. And the other thing is, of course, the basis for the major 7th chord, which is an extremely important chord to know, because it carries a host of other chords, other interesting chords that are based on the major 7th chord. Not much to say about this interval. There's a few things done with this, but it's just an interval. And it's the last one before we reach the octave. And the octave is the same note. And again, extremely easy. On the guitar, you can play them pretty close to each other. So I do that a lot, the octaves. I got this, of course, from Hendrix, but also from Wes Montgomery. When somebody in high school gave me a record of Wes Montgomery, like, oh my God, There's octaves everywhere. All right, so I'm going to go randomly here through some of them. I would suggest learning very well the thirds and the sixths because they're very useful for harmonies. Sorry, what am I playing? There. These are sixths, and the thirds, they're also extremely important. Or you hear how smooth they sound, and actually after the octave and the unison, very basic harmonies, after that there's the thirds and sixths. You'll hear a lot of them on records, and fifths and fourths are also used in harmonies, but they're more they sound a bit like going to church. So I don't know if that's your thing or not, but it sounds a bit more bland and square. I really enjoy thirds and sixths for harmonies. The other thing you should know how to play is within a scale, being able to identify the sound of each of these intervals. And they will be selected for you because when you study a scale, the scale will give you certain notes. So if you're playing the major scale is only going to give you the perfect fourth and fifth, and everything else is going to be major. Major second, major third, major sixth, and major seventh. So by singing the scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, you'll be singing all the intervals, but you'll be singing them in seconds because you'll be playing C, D, which is a second, D, E, which is another second. So that's a bit too easy. So what I suggest you do, and I often do that, give this suggestion to people, then I don't know if they listen, but you should play them or sing them one by one against the roots. So C, D, C, E, C, F, C, G, C, A, C, D, C, C, and then backwards. C, B, C, A, C, G, C, F, C, E, C, D, C, C. That way you'll be practicing all these intervals, right? And when you move on to minor, you do the same with minor, then you'll be practicing. Some of them are the same, like the second, the fourth, and the fifth, but the third, sixth, and seventh, you'll get the minor version. So you'll be practicing this, the whole scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But you can also practice it by interval, C, D, C, E, C, F, C, G, C, A, C, B flat, C, C. All right, you hear that? So you're practicing all these intervals. And slowly they will get in your ear and your mind, and you'll be able to control them. And when you improvise, you'll go, I want this sound, and I want that sound, and I want this relationship. And when I'm playing a chord, or just a simple triad, I can add whatever sound I want, even strange ones. Right? These sounds are all within your grasp if you know how all these intervals work. So I find it extremely useful to learn scales by being mindful of intervals, and that means going from the root, jumping back and forth through all the intervals. All right, so this lesson is a bit more abstract than what we're used to because it's just a huge topic, but I just wanted to present it to you in a very non-academical way because it's just more of my opinion on a lot of this stuff. But you don't have to have my opinion on this. You just have to figure out what it is you hear when you hear an interval. And you can find, I put the score down here, but you can find names and tables and all that. You can find it everywhere. But what you really need to do, remember what I always say, that you're your own best teacher. That means that you have to figure out what it is that all this stuff means to you. So if you learn a chord, you have to know what does this chord mean to me? What does it say? Maybe what color does it have? You don't have to think in colors, but you know what I mean, right? What feeling does that make me feel? And do other chords make me feel different things? And the same with intervals. The thing is that intervals are really the smallest possible unit. And so while of course it's extremely important that you understand and interiorize and interpret for yourself every chord and every scale, these chords and scale are made up of many notes, but the interval is really the starting building block for this. And so it's extremely important that you understand them and you have your own opinion on them. Okay, that's what's so important. And make up your own mind as for the sound of every single interval. And yes, be able to sing it. Be able to sing it and be able to recognize it. When you hear an interval, minor sixth, you know, whatever it is, this was a major third, whatever it is, you hear it and you go like, pam, pam, okay, this is this sound, pam, pam, this is that sound. And yeah. So let me get through the questions. I'm getting feedback. Okay, so, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. Let me just catch up with you guys. All right, so, well, thank you very much for your comments about the song. Thank you. I'll try to do more. It's nerve-wracking to do, but it is fun as well. Can I have PDF files for lessons? Well, it takes me a long time, Manuel, it takes me a long time to prepare these things, even today, which sounds a bit improvised, but really I really think about what I'm going to say and how and to whom, because you're all at different levels and you all have different needs. So preparing PDFs for everything, it might be too much work, you know. And then I won't be able to make any records. And if I don't make records, people will be like, well, this guy only talks about music. And really, you know, the whole thing is making music. But I will keep it in mind, if there's something that's more difficult than usual, then there's always something on screen to help you out. Hello, I'm not seeing an image. All right, Marcel, yeah, I think we fixed that. He doesn't, Sean says that I don't do tabs. Yes, it is true. I often don't do it. Although you'll be surprised, there's one video of Inside the Song coming up related to today, which will have a tab. Okay, but usually it's true. I don't believe in tabs, especially for today's stuff. You can just watch me and find it by ear. It's so important. Okay. You see me? Okay, great. Dissonance. Okay, yeah, he must be in full screen. All right. Wow, look at you guys. Always helping each other. You're great. Interesting. The sus chord resolved. Yes. Whiteboard. Yes, maybe I should buy a whiteboard. Yeah, there's more stuff though. And I just figure out how to make these three things work. So, but I keep it in mind. All right, so that is Art says, I just don't know how to play with scales well and not sound like I'm just running scales. I mean, I need more practice at sounding like I'm not just playing with scales. Okay, well, one thing you could do, that is Art, is to stop playing scales. And I know that I'm one that always says, well, you should learn your scales up and down, but you will play as you practice. And if you practice going up and down scales all the time, you will end up kind of sounding like you're running up and down the scale. And so one thing that I would suggest is, if you know your scales, if you feel comfortable with how you know the scales, you don't have to know them everywhere. You can just know a few spots on the neck. Then you could just stop playing them for like a week and only make music. And this has to do a lot with what we did today, because you'll be able to just go, okay, well, if I'm playing this note, now I don't know what I'm playing because I can't raise the volume without feeding back. But if I'm playing this note, before I go, right, I want to just say, it's feeding back already. Okay, what do I want to hear? Right, this melody is not going to win me any Grammys, but you just listen to your own ear and then play it on the instrument. And I know it's hard, but if you don't get started, you'll never get there. So start doing it. And if you hear a note in your head and you can't play it, just you go fish for it. And there you go. And maybe after watching today's video, you'll know that's a minor sixth. But you see, you will only play as you play. And the more you play going up and down scales, the more you will sound like it. And it's the same thing with watching 1,000 videos. I tell it to people, and I don't want to be, I don't want to tell people what to do, but watching videos is not the same as playing. And playing scales up and down is not the same as making music. It might be a necessary part of it, but it's not the same thing. You have to, or writing music. If you will never learn something that will make you write better music than writing music. So if you want to write a song, just go and write a song, right? And then you'll figure out, okay, well, I'm trying to write a song, but I'm having problems with this, this, and this. Then you'll have areas to practice. But nobody will ever teach you how to write songs from nothing. You have to write songs, right? If you want to paint, you have to paint first. And then go like, okay, well, I really need to work, work on my hands or feet or whatever I find difficult, noses or trees, whatever it is. But you have to get started. So, so you say, I need more practice at sounding like I'm not just playing scales. Yes, stop playing scales. That's what I would try. Let me know next week how it goes. Indrajit says, very useful, thank you. Jose, what's up? Jose, didn't you ask a while ago that you wanted to hear Midnight Driver? When this video is over, go back to the beginning, and you might get a little bit of a surprise there, all right? And also in a couple of weeks or so, you'll enjoy the Inside the Song video on Tuesday. But maybe go back to the beginning of the video when this is done, and I think you'll enjoy it. Yes, welcome back, Jose. That's right. Hello, Indrajit. Yes. Did you make PDFs on the subject of learning the notes on the neck? I don't think so. I make these images and I put them on the screen. And it's not that I'm being lazy, really. It's just that I don't think it's conducive. And if you need the PDFs, I can try to, every time I do something for OBS, to have it available on PDF. But I think you should just put out a piece of paper and go, okay, today's masterclass is on this, and you write it down. And if it's hard to write down, then you go back next day and do it again. And I think it will be most useful, but I can look for it. I don't even think what did I do for the learning the fretboard thing? Let me look at it. If I find it, I will put it up on Dropbox or something, and I will post a link to the video, okay? And you can download it. But I just want to say that you don't need it. You don't need any of that. You have a guitar with 6 strings on it. You got your fingers. It's all there, especially if you can watch it on video. But I do appreciate your concern. I mean, I'm not belittling your problems, but the solution is usually to just do it yourself, one note at a time, as Indrajit says. And Sean suggests you stop while playing scales or skip notes. That's true. That's for improvising. And then there's Jose. Okay, yes, you'll enjoy it, I think. I don't know how it came out, but it is a song you like. Hello, Andre. Hello, Onur Kamani. Hello, man. Hi, Andre. I really like how you teach. Sorry if you answered this before, but when I try to write melodies over chord progressions, I can only use the key major and minor, and major relative. Okay. I can understand which other modes can be used. How can I ingrain this to my memory? All right, Onur, this is a big question, I think. And if you don't mind, I would ask you to come back next week, because we've been running for about an hour already. And I really, I could give you a quick answer, but this deserves maybe a bit more attention. Will you mind coming back next week, same time? And next week's masterclass is going to be a Q&A, so I won't come in with anything prepared. And I'll answer all your questions before the August break, because in August I won't make live masterclasses. I come back, of course, in September. And so maybe, Onur, you can come back and we'll go over it on next Saturday. In the meantime, you could go back to my videos on this playlist, the live masterclass playlists, and we talk about major modes, minor modes, and there's one on how to learn scales. So that might be useful for you. Okay, but please do come back next Saturday, and so I can, give this question the attention it needs. I think it's a great question, and a lot of people will benefit from it. So maybe we can do it properly next week. Let me know what you think. And I'll jump around just a little bit more inside a scale rather than playing each note. Also kind of like arpeggio. Yes, but that is art. If you do that, it will sound novel, and it will sound interesting for a little while, and then it will sound just like you have the same problem as before, but now you have 3 problems. Because before you just play linearly, now you start jumping around with no purpose. And it will do something for your playing, but it's not going to be a huge difference, because then you'll go like, okay, well, now I'm jumping around all the time. So do I have to choose between jumping around all the time and playing linearly? Well, no, you don't have to do that. You can play musically. And so I suggest you do what I suggested, just for a few days, put your head down and really do that, and let me know how it goes. Because if you just become mechanically attached to another way of playing, like arpeggios, which of course it has its place, but eventually, you will become mechanical as well, which is not bad. But for you, I think, for your question, I would just give up, just make music. Yeah, so maybe that's a bit too much advice. You didn't ask for that much. And play like a drum beat. Yeah, that's another option. But it's great that you guys are helping each other out, so don't take my suggestions too seriously. Do what you feel. There's no right answers, but I am trying to, help you out. But you don't have to listen to anything I say, actually, because that's part of the thing, do your own thing. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I want to thank you all for being here. All right, you've been great, and I hope you enjoyed the little small concert in the beginning. I might try to do more and to make this whole streaming thing work. The thing is, I want it to sound right, and I think it sounded pretty good on your end because it's coming straight from the sound card, and no more of the little microphone stuff. And yeah, so I see you next Saturday, same time, 6:30 Central European Time, and we'll do a Q&A. So prepare your questions. We'll do however long it takes. We can be here for an hour or so, and I will try to answer your questions, and then we'll take a break until September. But throughout August, we're always going to have the Inside the Song videos, which if you haven't watched, I suggest you do. Also, if you enjoy these videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. If you are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell, because everybody's saying that they don't get the notifications until I think somehow, somewhere, YouTube kind of reset preferences a long time ago, and some people haven't updated them. And yeah, so I'll see you very soon. Thanks, Sandra, much appreciated. Well, I appreciate you being here, guys, and Indrajit loved the concert. Well, thank you. Thanks, Sandra. I will check after the stream is done. All right. Yeah, Jose, I think you'll enjoy it. Hopefully. If not, let me know. No, if not, just tell me you enjoyed it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Also, thank you all, those of you who sent donations. I don't like to mention it too much because I don't want to impose anything, but I receive them, and they're very much appreciated. And you know, it means a lot that you're here, but it also means a lot that you contribute, and so on. So see you guys very soon, and I'll see you next week. Check out this Tuesday's Inside the Song. It's going to be pretty fun. All right. I'm going to turn off now. See you. Bye-bye.